Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Sunday talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. I am your host, Noor Kyle,
And I am her faithful sidekick, Mushtaq Ali.
and we want to thank you for joining us, whether you're here live tonight or watching on the replay. I suspect we may have people trickle in over the next hour, given that for us in the US, we are shifting out of daylight savings time into just regular standard time, and that tends to mess people up a little bit. All good. We'll have a good time regardless. And soon we'll all just get back right into the routine until springtime when we all get screwed up all over again. Yay. Um, so yes, like I said, if you're watching on YouTube, then there are a few ways you can support our work if you are enjoying and benefiting from our work. You can subscribe to our channel, you can leave comments, you can share if you find that you see things that people might also benefit from experiencing and learning from. And of course, you can support us by donating. So we do have
And
a
don't
couple of,
forget, you can
what am I
like our
forgetting?
videos.
What's that?
You can like our video.
Oh,
Hit
yes.
that thumbs up.
The most simple way to support us, of
Yes.
course, is to put a thumbs up on our videos. Yes.
We
Thank you
appreciate
for
all of
pulling
them.
your go through every single one and give them a thumbs up if you want. But just this one is good too. All right. So, like I was saying, right now, in addition to doing our one-on-ones or our two-on-ones in which you can get personal consultation with us and you can connect with us via email if that's something that interests you. You can support us right now as we do our fund drive to make sure that we have all of our bases covered with our expenses coming up for the year. We have a lot of things like our Zoom subscriptions and our email and all of those things that we need to get taken care of in order to do what we do. Most of the work that we do is for free. So it is from the support of our comrades in arms here in the Nine-Sided Circle and our viewers on YouTube. That's how we make this sustainable. So thank you so much to those who have donated already, those who are going to be donating in the near future. Thank you very much. And we are also doing as part of our fundraiser, we are doing a raffle in that,
One lucky or perhaps unlucky individual will win not one, not two, but three private consultations with one or the other of us, or maybe even one of them with both of us together. So
yep,
you have your choice. You can spend 3 hours talking with Noor, which is, I guarantee you, a lot of fun. 3 hours talking with me, or 2 hours talking with me, and 2 hours talking with Noor, and 1 hour talking with the both of us. Or you can switch back and forth. However many combinations you can figure out of that, you get.
maybe not, definitely not consecutively, but 3 sessions. It's a great deal. It's usually $100 for an hour or 150 for both of us together for an hour. So it's worth it. It's definitely worth it for that donation.
Yeah, and it's going to have to be consecutive because it can't be simultaneous by definition.
Not 3 hours in a row.
No.
That's no. I think that would be a lot for all of us. We'll make it work though. All right. So, without further ado, silliness aside, again, thank you for the
No,
donation.
never.
Thank you for joining us on YouTube or here on Zoom Live. Much appreciated. So, without further ado, let's get to our talk this evening. We are finally returning to story time. We haven't had a story time in a while. So, today we have for our entertainment and enlightenment Mullah Nasruddin in the Land of the Entranced.
Sounds ominous. Why is there no flourish of trumpets? So,
Right.
show, would people like to hear this story?
Yes, definitely.
Getting
Ooh, yes, yes.
so one day, Mullah Nasruddin set out on a journey with his faithful donkey. And after many adventures, too many to even recount here, he spied in the distance in his travels a rather disheveled looking city. It looked almost as if it were in ruins. And since he had never seen this before, he decided to go over and check it out. And he got there and noticed that there were people all over the city. There were people working in the fields outside the city. There were guards. There were everything. And so Mullah comes up to the gate, the main gate of the city, and the guards say, "Welcome. We are very happy that you have come here. Come and see our most beautiful city. See the greatest city in the world. See the city that is the best of all cities." And Mullah looks around and he says to himself, "Well, everybody is entitled to their opinion," and he goes in. Now, he goes and he finds himself a coffee shop, at least what he assumed was a coffee shop. And he ties up his donkey outside and he goes in and he orders a cup of coffee. And they bring him a cup of hot, muddy water. And everybody he notices is drinking this hot, muddy water. And they're all like, "Oh, such a good cup of coffee." And Mullah's getting a little bit nervous at this point. And so he goes and he asks where he can find an inn. And the coffee merchant tells him, and he goes over and he goes into the inn and he asks if his donkey can be put up in the stable and if he can get a room. And the innkeeper says, "Welcome, welcome, welcome to the best inn in the world with the most comfortable room. Rooms fit for a king, rooms fit for an emperor, rooms fit for a demigod. Our rooms are so good." And Mullah thinks to himself, "Oh boy." And so he pays for a room and he goes up, and there is a straw mat on the floor, no rugs. The room is dusty. The room is disheveled. There are spiders, small spider cities in the corners of the room. Not just a single spider, but like there's an entire enterprise going on up there. And Mullah thinks, these people don't get out much. But he goes down to get dinner. And again, he gets a warm cup of river water. And his food is some gruel with maybe some straw on the side. And everybody around him is eating this. And it's like they look like they're having such a pleasurable time of eating this meal of sticky gruel and straw. And Mullah does his best to eat this. And he's just observing. He's watching these people very, very carefully. And finally, he strikes up a conversation with one of them. And he says, "My friend, I don't know your city. Tell me about it." And the man goes, "This is the best city in the world. We have the finest of everything here. Look at this beautiful meal that we are served in this place. Look at the wonderful clothes everybody's wearing." And Mullah looks around and they're kind of ragged, actually. Not really impressive, but they're looking at each other like they're beautiful. And Mullah says, who is the ruler of this city? And they say, the ruler of this city is a great magician. And it is because of his wonderful rule that we are so happy here. As a matter of fact, every month, this magician invites everyone to a big dinner at the palace where he feeds us, tells us stories, entertains us, and generally makes sure that we are a happy people. And Mullah asks, do you think I could go to that? And he says, of course, everybody is welcome. So the next day, Mullah prepares himself and makes sure that his donkey is very comfortable, and discovers that the stable has holes in the roof and the hay is a little bit moldy looking, and the donkey is giving him the hairy eyeball, like, what did you do putting me in this place? The rats are better fed than I am here, which was true. But he tells the donkey, it will be okay. We'll get you out of here soon. And so that evening, Mullah goes to the palace, and he goes inside and he sits in the back corner where he's not really well seen, but he wants to watch everything because he's really wondering about this. And everybody's sitting. Some people look like they're nodding off a little bit, and the magician comes out, and he is dressed in beautiful robes. And he begins talking to the people. He talks to them in very specific ways. And he weaves stories. And within the stories, the mullah, because the mullah is very well read, and though he sometimes acts the fool, he never has been. He notices that within the stories, magic is happening. Every story has a binding spell in it. So the magician tells the story of the happy workers in the field, and how everybody who works in the field is so satisfied, and how it makes them feel good to work there, and how they are so well fed and well treated, and on like this all night long, over and over again. And Mullah Nasruddin realizes that this entire city is under the spell of the magician. The magician is hypnotizing them, putting them in a trance, and telling them how happy they are and how satisfied they are with everything that they have, and creating this illusion for them so real that they would rather live the illusion than to discover reality. Mullah thinks about this and he asks himself, what is my responsibility? And he's not sure. So he leaves the dinner and he goes back and he talks to his donkey. His donkey, whose name is Sakhif. Uh, Great name for a donkey. And he tells him what he's seen. The donkey listens very carefully. The donkey is wiser than many people. And he asks the donkey, what do you think my being obligation to these people is? And the donkey just looks at him, as donkeys are wont to do. Just looks at him, doesn't say anything. And Mullah gets a little bit uncomfortable because he wants an answer, but he finally comes to the conclusion that the only answer he can get is the one he gives himself. And he realizes that he is under no obligation to wake these people up. That if they chose to be in a trance, that is their choice. But what if they didn't choose? this is his big question. What if they didn't choose to be in this trance? That makes them slaves. And Mullah notes that it is uh, a very good thing to free slaves. He asks himself, and he asks his donkey, what is the best way to free these slaves? Because if I tell them the truth, first of all, they won't believe me. And second of all, it will upset them. And we all know that people who are upset are dangerous. So what does Mullah do? The next day, Mullah goes back to the inn to have some food. And when the food is delivered, he looks at it and he says to the woman, why did you bring me a roast peacock? I ordered gruel. And the woman looks at him like he's crazy. He said, that's not roast peacock. That is the finest stew you've ever had. And Mullah says, no, it's roast peacock, really. Look very, very carefully. See the colors in the meat. And he waits. And the woman looks at him like he's crazy. And Mullah looks at her and says, you know, that's all right. If you can't see the roast peacock, obviously you see something else. I wonder what that is. How do you know it's not roast peacock? And the woman gets very upset with him and says, I wouldn't serve you roast peacock when you ordered stew. And Mullah thanks her for the meal and he leaves. And she's staring at him and she's squinting her eyes at him and she's scratching her chin and wondering what the hell he's talking about. And Mullah goes around the town all that day and he acts a little bit like a maniac. He plays a fool and tells very interesting and particular jokes, jokes that might run a little bit counter to people's experience. But since they're jokes, and since Mullah is obviously crazy, nobody gets upset with him, or not too upset. He plays his usual Mullah jokes. You know, he has a whole bunch of them. He likes the one where he's looking around for something and get everybody to help him look around. And when they ask him what he's looking for, he tells them, I lost a dinar. And they say, where did you lose it? And he says, up in my room. And they say, well, why are you looking out here? And of course he says, because the light is better. You know, all the standard Mullah jokes. He messes with them. And then he leaves the city. And after many other adventures, he comes home. Some months later, he hears that there's this city that had a revolution, and they discovered that they had all been put under a spell by a magician. And somehow they had broken the spell. And all of them drove the magician out of town, and now they are living in hovels, but they seem much happier, most of them. Some of them still long for the days when everything was beautiful. But most of them are happy that they're actually experiencing the reality of the situation because then they're able to do something about it. And think about that. Think about what it is like to be under the spell of a magician who tells you, oh, you are happy with your work. The work that you're doing is so important. And you do the work and he gets the benefit. The magician tells you, You live in a beautiful place. You are so lucky to have all of these things around you. And you live in a hovel where the rats eat better than you do. But you never notice because you've been told this. And here's the thing. The people who were under this spell, when they looked for the magician, they couldn't find him. The magician was as much of an illusion as everything else in their city. And you know what that means. And that's the story. It's not a great story, but it's a good story.
This is the best story ever.
All of Mullah's stories are the best story ever. So, what
RM
do you
says
think? Yeah, go ahead.
RM says in the chat that she had goosebumps. So good. I'm glad that the story has reached out to you.
Yeah, so what do you think the story means? What is it about? How can you relate to it? Don't everybody answer at once. Yes, James.
That's better. The immediate thing that comes to mind is he's challenging their trance, but not in a direct way that would make it react against it. He's introducing some kind of subterfuge, some kind of subtle destabilization into their trances. And
Yes.
I think that's definitely happening. And coming at someone's trance head on is definitely, well, quite often futile if they don't want to hear it. So he's taken a path that can benefit them. It's not a massive, I mean, they think he's mad, but it's not a massive cost to himself because I'm sure he doesn't care. That's just the initial impression. He's waking them up with subtlety for both them and his own sake.
Here's an interesting thing. As you know, I was a hypnotherapist for years, taught hypnosis, Ericksonian model hypnosis back in the day. And people ask me, why are you so good at this? Because I was really good at this. And I always told them, it's because I understand that everybody I work with is already in trance. I don't have to do anything to put them in trance. They're already there. I just have to help them see the trance that I want them to see.
Hmm.
And Rat makes an observation that he was a one man and one donkey merry pranksters. And if you don't know who the merry pranksters are, it means you aren't as old as me. But if you don't know, you should look them up. Who were the merry pranksters and why were they called that? Yeah, Mullah was halfway between the merry pranksters and the monkey wrench gang.
Okay.
Another one to look up.
Another one to look up.
Yeah. Chris, you said dangerous. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Oh yeah, just in what James was saying about attacking the delusion head on. It can be dangerous in a way. I mean, I'm reminded of the good old Plato's allegory of the cave, and I put one particular line in there where it says like, if this person who sees that what the folks are seeing on the walls is an illusion, then wouldn't they try to kill them? And they says like certainly they would try to kill
Yep.
them, and that does happen from time to time.
Yeah, and this is why Mullah would never tell them that they were delusional. Remember, when you point out a person's delusion, And when a lot of people hold the delusion, it's called heresy. And
Yeah,
heretics
the
get
immune
burned at
system
the
kicks
stake.
in.
Beg your pardon?
Yeah. I said the
Yeah.
the immune system of the illusion, and I appreciate the sly approach of the jokes as being the kind of shock to maybe change some things. Maybe not, but the indirect approach versus the direct approach, like James said.
Yeah. The mullah understood that the community there needed a shock, needed several shocks. It needed things that would subtly jar them from their somnambulistic complacency.
Thank you, Chris. Good observations. And that's important to think about. And we will continue to chew on that. And Rat says the story has the feel of tropes in Xianxia. And I am
It's a kind of story that's actually very popular right now
oh really?
about usually Taoist cultivators who go through adventures and have. It's hard to describe. I'm not totally familiar with it, but I've read a couple of them, and if they're well written, they're kind of enjoyable.
Mhm. So a tale, like a
Yeah.
some kind of instructive or illustrative tale. Yeah. Yes. And Rat continues. At first, my thought was it was going to be, quote, being John Malkovich, unquote, but with DJT, smiley face.
Yeah, and you notice how people assume that it is about El Chito, but the story is not. There's something
Well,
to think about.
well, there was that little twist at the end that I still haven't wrapped my head around with the magician not being there.
And that's the trouble with having self-replicating trances installed in a person, because everyone in that village had a self-replicating trance. They all reinforced themselves and they all reinforced each other to the point where the magician was just part of their group hallucination.
But what about the fact that Nasruddin sat in the corner when the magician held his monthly banquet?
Sometimes delusion has a lot of weight. Something for you to think about.
That shit's catching.
Yeah. It is quite possible that one of the citizens of the city had deluded himself into thinking that he was the magician. And so every month would go in there and do what a magician does. And everybody agreed with him. Agreement is an incredibly powerful force. Think about it. We have Elon Musk. He's the richest man in the world. What if everybody else in the world agreed with each other that Elon Musk had no money? Would he still be the richest man in the world? I mean, Elon would come up to somebody and go, I want to buy your stuff. And they'd look at him and go, you don't have any money. Get out of here. He would go to the bank and
I'd like to
demand,
withdraw $1 million from my bank account.
Yeah, you don't have any money? Get out of this bank before I call the police. Elon Musk has hundreds of billions of dollars because everybody agrees he does, and for no other reason. People have political power because everybody agrees that they do. Even if they hate the person, they agree that he has political power or she has political power. We have delusion by agreement in this world.
And the the while that's absolutely true, the counter view to that would be that that sort of agreement is kind of necessary for much of the logistics of everyday life to function. I mean, it's clear that,
Maybe not, but it's still agreement.
well, yeah, that's what I started off by saying. But it doesn't necessarily mean that all agreement is bad.
No, all agreement is agreement. It's neither good nor bad. The fruits of it might be good or bad, but I didn't say anything moral about agreement. I'm just pointing out to you that things like Elon Musk's money exists because of our agreement that it exists.
Well, yeah, it's like any tool. Any tool can be used for good or bad.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what your point is.
Well, I just felt that you implied that it was bad. Uh,
No, that you
I,
hallucinated that I implied that it was bad. I didn't imply that it was bad.
I won't quibble on that,
All right. So,
James.
James,
James, yes. I also want to pull in before that rat's comment in the chat. Uh Rat says my final take is our hero Nasruddin was extremely successful. And in response to the discussion about um culturally supported delusions, we've got ZERP and NERP, and that leads to anything is possible. I'm not sure I quite follow that. I may be missing something, Rat, if you feel like
Zero,
elaborating.
zero interest rates and negative interest rates.
Oh, thank you. Yes, there we go. Good catch for the financially literate. All right, James, yes.
Um, in regards to whether a trance is good or bad, I do think because so much of our trance, our social trance is fear-based. We need this, we can't survive without that. Even if it's serving a practical function in coordinating society, that fear-based, that self-restricting, I think it helps or it contributes to a downward spiral. Fear-based social trance makes you vulnerable uh, to people who can manipulate that trance and also to your own contraction away from reality. I think there is a degenerative tendency in it, even when it might be serving some practical function at the time.
yeah, could very well be. And it is often fear-based. Money is the perfect example of this. My old friend Bob used to refer to money, dollars, pounds, whatever, as survival tickets.
I was trying to remember where that was from. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, that's from old Bob. Survival tickets. At least that's where I got it. And he noted that people become anxious if they don't have survival tickets. And they can freak out and they can go out and try and get survival tickets in various different ways. But everybody wants the survival tickets because they think that they cannot survive without it. And RM asks, do we need to rebel against agreements to get out of delusion? And
Let's start with that before
yeah,
we
we
move on to
start
the
with
next
that.
question.
And the answer is no. You don't need to rebel against them. You just need to understand that that's what they are. Money is an agreement. Wealth is an agreement. Um, you are surrounded by agreements that you've made consciously or unconsciously. And the ideal is to make agreements consciously as much as possible. So if I understand that money is agreement, then I understand that if I want more money, then all I need to do is get more agreement. That sounds almost like prosperity gospel, but it's not.
Or, you know, material manifestation or
Yeah,
whatever.
and it's not that either, because you actually have to work to get that agreement. It doesn't come to you. I can believe that people are going to agree that I have more money than Elon Musk, but they aren't gonna unless I do a lot of work to get them to agree to that.
Yeah,
Uh,
most of the big spike that he's got recently is because of increases in the apparent valuation of SpaceX.
Yeah,
And you don't get to do SpaceX without being pretty brilliant.
well, that's a whole different argument and one that we don't have time to go into this evening. Uh, I would say that Musk has a certain low cunning and an ability to organize people in such a way that he can uh, take advantage of their expertise.
Yeah, I think it's notable that he's not the CEO of SpaceX. He's actually, it's the CEO is actually a woman who seems to be doing a brilliant job. And there's chaos in Twitter now, X, and Tesla, even Tesla. I mean, it's
Yeah,
stock has gone nowhere for ages, and largely because he
too in
messes
control.
around.
Yeah, and Tesla is going downhill fast. They're getting into a lot of trouble. And since I live in Tesla land here, I get to see it firsthand.
yeah, we talk about the stories that we have from time to time about how much of a the mess office life is there. So we
Yeah,
don't need to get into that. But suffice to say, he has a lot of confidence around him. And it is kind of a confidence game, as in like a con game. So
yeah,
case in point,
yeah. He gets to have a lot of agreement that he is a great genius, whether he is or not. And he controls the survival tickets of a whole bunch of people who live in fear. And trust me on that. Most of those people live in fear of him. And it's fear that they will get their survival tickets taken away from them.
Yeah, I don't doubt that at all, especially after what he did at X.
hmm
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Yep.
he has less agreement that he's cool these days than he's ever had.
Indeed.
And he just polluted my favorite creek here. And
Literally in our town, like
yeah,
a couple blocks away.
yeah, we go there and watch the ducks swim up and down the creek. And he dumped huge amounts of coolant into the creek.
Him personally, no, but he is responsible for the company that is not really doing their due diligence to prevent that from happening. And I think he has so much, you know, so much confidence in his access to meal tickets and everything that for him, it's another problem to throw meal tickets at.
Yeah. But we come to an interesting Question. How can we become like Mullah?
Yes. So this is RM's second question.
Yeah. And Rat comes in with, you want to read that before I come up with
Sure.
a
Sorry about that.
hopefully brilliant answer?
Rat says, Mullah is willing. Oh, wait. Are we working on this before you come back to that
It's
question?
the
Is that what you're
same,
saying?
it's an answer to the same question.
Okay. Rat says, Mullah is willing to appear foolish, which most people would be mortified by. The masses, like flocking birds, nudge each other to form the Overton window of the locale.
Yeah.
So that's a great term, Overton window. Let's touch on that. I'm gonna
Okay,
pull
go
up a
ahead. Touch on that.
definition. Yeah, it's kind of the realm of what is considered not quite socially acceptable, let's say politically acceptable. That's typically how it's used, but I'm going to quickly look up a definition so that we can be on point here. Yeah, okay. So, formally speaking, the Overton window is an approach to identifying the ideas that define the spectrum of acceptability of, let's say, government policies. Yeah. And it was originally a way to solve fundraising and communications challenges. So it is meant to be a political tool. It's a way to navigate and manufacture social control.
I've actually been thinking about it in a much broader context of what is thinkable and what is unthinkable,
Yeah, I mean that's
which applies in science, or you can think that there's certain things that are impossible, and then there's some discoveries that say, oh, no, those things actually are possible. In fact, to bring it back to SpaceX, that phenomenal feat where they landed the Starliner and caught it out of its fall was something that was most people, a lot of people thought was just simply something that was not possible. Then Musk did it. Well, his company did it.
His company did it. He had nothing to do with it other than supplying capital.
Yeah, I totally agree.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
you have to remember that there is a precedent for this. We look at Edison. Edison was a mediocre scientist from what I could tell, but he was really good at organizing very smart people around him to do things that he wanted them to do, and then putting his name on them.
Yeah, I got that impression too, although I don't know too much of the detail.
Yeah, because Edison and Tesla had a really big rivalry. I spent a
Mm.
lot of time studying the existent histories, and it's really quite illuminating because it tells us if I go down this road, it's going to take us way off subject. So I'm going to reel this back for another time. Watch me grab
Okay.
myself and go.
There you go. Good job. But case in point, I mean, this is the topic in action lived. People are living this in our area. They are uh, coping with the social delusion of what Tesla stands for and how it can affects them personally. So, yes, Chris says I've been using it as what's permissible to talk about, especially in public. That's how he's using the term Overton window, and that's a reasonable way to think about this.
Yeah. So, how do we be like Mullah? One thing is be willing to be crazy. Crazy is defined as acting outside the social norms. So there's a legal definition of insanity, which is to be a danger to yourself or to others, or be gravely disabled by reason of mental defect. Anything that does not meet one or more of those three criteria is not insanity. So I may walk around with a duck on my head, and as long as I'm taking care of my needs and not hurting anybody, I'm not crazy. And maybe I don't even see the duck, even though it's there, and I'm still not crazy. I'm sort of stealing from Terry Pratchett here, because he had a character in his books, The Duck Man, who had a duck on his head and was not aware of it. But you're not insane if you don't meet those three criteria. But crazy is not insane. Korzybski used the term unsane in some ways, but there needs to be a term other than that for operating outside of the social construct and yet affecting the social construct. And we see that in various different cultures. Here in America, amongst Native Americans, they have clowns that go by different names. Heyoka, Kosher, all of this. And they are people who operate outside of the structure for the benefit of the structure. We have that in India. We have the Bals and the some of the Shivayats who act in a really random manner to the rest of us. And yet they're not crazy. They're not dangerous to themselves. They aren't dangerous to others. They know how to take care of themselves, so they cannot be judged insane. Looks like Alka is about to say something here.
No, when you were saying Shiva, do you mean like Aghoris?
Yeah, like them.
Yeah, you're right. They are actually the secret army used to be secret army for kings who used to learn. Wow, yeah, I never thought about it. Like,
Yeah,
so cool.
yeah. And so in China, you had some of the Taoists who acted really crazy. And in Japan, you have the Zen masters, right? Who are notable for hitting you with a stick on random occasions and walking around with their shoes on their head. They don't have ducks, I guess. So those people exist. And if you want to be like Mullah Nasruddin, that's what you have to become. And that means that you have to break your own social conditioning. And most people can't do that. Breaking your social conditioning is scary and dangerous and may ostracize you. Yep.
Yeah.
Rat is full of good quotes tonight.
So Rat is quoting J. Krishnamurti, who said, "It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society." And that's the challenge in this, is that it takes a lot of resilience to push back against, for many of us, if we are used to adhering to a state of conformity, to not rocking the boat, to doing our best to not make waves and not be impossible, be cooperative, be likable, all of those things, those attachments to the need to be liked and all of that, that is going to trip us up if we have any interest at all in breaking out of this trance state where We just, decide to live within that Overton window we were just talking about. Is that a state of wellness? Jiddu Krishnamurti would say no.
So the first step to being like Mullah Nasruddin is to learn to wake yourself up. Break yourself out of the trance. You can't bring anybody else out of a trance until you get out of the trance yourself. And you can't get out of the trance until you realize you're in the trance. Because unfortunately, in the particular trance that we're all in, you cannot use the standard techniques for ending the trance. I can't count you up, have you walk up a set of stairs and all that sort of stuff, and then just be awake.
Or snap your fingers in front of your own face or anything like that.
Yeah, it doesn't quite work that way. You actually have to learn to bring yourself to a state of presence and awakeness. Once you do that, then you have to challenge the belief systems that have been instilled by you in order to begin seeing the world as it really is. And would you like to tell everybody what Gurdjieff's grandmother's final advice was?
Yeah, maybe Rat has that at hand. All right, no worries. No worries. So James says, I've known a few self-proclaimed tricksters. Oh, okay. So Rat has it on hand. Eldest of my grandsons, listen and always remember my strict injunction to you. In life, never do as others do. That's rough. Imagine how hard that really is for many people. For other people, they can't help but be contrarian in all things. And remind yourself that that in itself is a trance state. Don't forget that too.
Yeah, and my experience is that those people who think that they are tricksters are just assholes.
Yeah. So that was in response to James, who says, I've known a few self-proclaimed quote-unquote tricksters who had simply swapped social roles instead of coming to presence. Presence with a capital P, as in being awake, being present. They tend to get furious when the joke is on them.
Yep. And those guys who think that they are crazy wisdom gurus and all of that kind of stuff, I have met a bunch of them in my lifetime, and in my experience, they were all completely worthless.
Often you may have said this already. I was busy reading the chat, but often they're just plain assholes.
Yeah, I did say
Like
that.
irredeemable assholes.
Yeah. And they use their crazy wisdom to manipulate the people around them.
And it's very much a one-upmanship game as well. Ha ha ha, you're locked into your social role. I stand outside it and I'll prove that by manipulating you and deceiving you and tricking you. It's one-upmanship. It's just, crude ego trip.
And they think they're cool until you punch them in the face.
Exactly. And I can attest to that.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sure several of us here can.
Anyhow.
So Austin, I think he's referring to the quote from Gurdjieff's grandmother who said, don't do as others do. Austin offers, don't be like anyone else, question mark.
Yeah. Definitely be like yourself.
I mean, that's the thing, right? We're not necessarily working to neurotically avoid anything so much as figure out what is just stickiness, ingrained stickiness that we have left unchallenged or unexamined, shall we say. And sometimes we will need to do things out of our ordinary in order to unstick the stickiness. But if that is fundamentally a behavior you don't want to make your normal, your that it doesn't fit within your value system as you create for yourself. That's another thing that you'll have to be careful about is you get unstuck and then you discern where do your own values lie. It's not about breaking the rules just to break the rules. RM says, this story was a much needed shock. Interesting. Interesting. James says, I must confess, I tried on the trickster bullshit in my adolescence, involving a lot of self-deception and some brutal come downs. That's not uncommon, I think, for people who are drawn to that archetype and they want to wear it as an identity. I don't think it's meant to be taken on in that way.
Yeah, that particular archetype is never meant to be taken on. It sometimes happens to you. Sometimes powers higher than you vote you into that for a while.
But that's another thing, right? You're not trying to make it your whole personality.
Yeah.
There are so many things we can do that with, and being a trickster is just another one.
But fantasizing that you're up for it and getting away with it temporarily can be incredibly intoxicating.
Oh, yeah. That's why so many people try to do it. That's
Yep.
why we get so many cult leaders out there. There are more cult leaders than there are cults.
It's kind of interesting, but I think you're right about that.
Yeah.
Lots of wannabe cult leaders, that's for sure.
So let us bring this around to the very, very beginning of where this talk came from, which was actually a quote from the Spanda Karika. Y'all remember that? Nor do you have that handy? Or shall I
I
pull it up?
do. Let me lay that down. All right, so this is this Spanda Karika, which is verse 48. The energy of the universal vibration within the unawakened person enslaves him, whereas the same energy liberates the yogi. I'll read that again. The energy of the universal vibration within the unawakened person enslaves him, whereas the same energy liberates the yogi.
Now, where do we find the energy of the universal vibration? And of course, the answer is everywhere, but this is specific. There's a Sanskrit word, which is shabd. Alka, tell us what shabd means.
First, there was a word. So yes, Shabd is the word, the knowledge. But wow, I'm so sorry. I'm still digesting how you brought this together. I know others cannot see me, but I have tears in my eyes. It's just, whoosh. You have to give me some time.
Okay, take some time.
This is, yeah.
Since it's the language kind of belongs to you, I figured I would get your input on it.
All
That's
good,
okay.
all
You're
good.
good.
It's
You're
all
the
good.
shit, as American says. You're the shit. That's all I can say. Maybe that's not a bad, that's a bad word for some people, but
Yeah, we understand what it means.
Americans understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. So, shabd. It has a main meaning of speech, words, sound, vibration. And if I talk to you, that is one manifestation of the universal vibration. Sound is very powerful, and when sound is shaped into language, it has real potency for either enslavement or freedom. Think about it. Everyone here is listening to me, and I'm a hypnotist. So that means if you're listening to me, right now you could be noticing the trance that you're in. Scary, huh? So the same thing that can enslave you can free you. What's the difference? What do you have to do to move from one to the other?
Wake up.
Yeah, more or less.
RM says be a yogi.
And chase picnic baskets in the park.
It took me a minute, but I finally got that joke. Oh, jeez.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
All right.
What does yogi mean? Yogi means one who is integrated. So yeah, be a yogi. But we got to
Just
be
not be in your way. Sorry. Just not be in your way.
yes. And realize that somebody has the power of the word. And it's either going to be you over you or them over you. And that starts with learning to bring yourself into a state of awakeness. Because there's an old Turkish saying that I love so much that I'm going to quote it to you right now, which is, if you make yourself into a donkey, there's always somebody who's willing to ride you. There was silence.
James, you did have a thought.
Well, I've been having a few thoughts since then as well. But my first response went, "Oh, what do you do? Attention, intention, and presence. Well, wake yourself up." But they also got me thinking, sharp, the word, it's a power playing itself out. When you have more presence, when you wake yourself up from, I suppose, unconscious identification with the trance, do you not also start to have the capacity to be more sensitive to the powers that are unfolding, to be react to them I won't say use them or manipulate them, but go with them in new ways. It's not just freedom from a trance, it's creativity. It's a broader realm of function. Or is that overdoing it?
I don't necessarily think that's overdoing it.
Yeah.
I think we gain more flexibility when we're not frittering away our energy, living lives that we are just kind of going through the motions through. I think that there is a sense of self-ownership that comes with shaking off living with the confines of trances that have been, you know, over over chewed on, let's say. And when we finally spit those out, there are so many other flavors and tastes for us to experience.
When you're stepping outside the trance, you're also stepping into something else, even if you have difficulty recognizing it at first. Um, Definitely, I think. It's not
You
just
would
free.
probably be right. And you're not even stepping into it. You're just noticing that it's there.
Hmm.
The trouble with a trance is that it will give you both negative and positive hallucinations. Negative hallucination is you don't see what's there. Positive hallucination is you see what's not there. And people in trances can do both. Being out of the trance means experiencing what is. And that's a fundamentally useless phrase until you do it. And then you don't need to say stupid shit like that because I consider the phrase to be a little bit stupid.
Seeing what is,
Yeah.
being with what is, all of that. Yeah. It seems pretty inane until you actually experience it, and then the words somehow have less of a gobbledygook feel to them.
Yeah.
Alka, did you have a thought?
So this was too good to be true. It hit me so much. And that question, how to be a mullah, I could relate to the mullah in the story. And I just wrote these 7 bullet points for myself in order to continue to be the mullah. One was learn to break from norm. Second was be financially secure. You have to be financially secure in order to do this work. Breathing exercises, continue doing breathing exercises. Say no to do things you don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Grapple with.
There's one that you missed.
Yeah.
And it's right after the first one.
No, I'm working on my seven.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so sorry. I'm not. It's
No, go ahead.
maybe if I would.
I thought we got through all of them, but go ahead.
No, there were just 3. 4. Okay. 5th was grapple with death.
Yeah.
6th was don't worry too much going deep into the big I. That's another rabbit hole. Right? Like, I am,
Yes.
I've understood this, right? Just observe and see how you as an oats are playing this game. It's not the one-man ship with other people. Just not be in your way is what I've understood from this. It's not you who's doing things. It's something above you, through you, is doing things. Just observe. And the words shabd will make sense.
Mm-hmm.
That's what hit me when you
That's
brought it
all
all
really
together.
good. There is one little thing.
Okay.
It goes right
Okay.
after the first one.
Okay.
You have to know how to break the conventions, and you have to know when and why.
Yes. And I cannot even begin to tell you. I walked, this was holidays time, this was Diwali time, and I
Mm.
was walking into so many events with such people to a point that I was made into a bad person because I chose to do something that wasn't norm. And then finally, I thanks to all this work that I'm doing, I was able to say, you can do whatever. You can call, there's a duck on my head. You can call me crazy, anything. But this is not about you people. This is about me wanting to do with work with me. This is me, right? It's not like I'm judging you guys. I need to take care of myself. And I'm saying no to all these parties. I'm saying no to all this. It's just, so when you brought it all together, that saying no to do things you don't want to do was very important to me. And it's not easy because you have to break so many norms. So many people look at you as if you're nuts. And initially it's like, maybe I am nuts. Maybe I've lost it. I've become boring. So, so thank you. I, I, I don't even have shabd. I don't even have words to say thank you. You have truly, truly uh, woken, at least woken me. So, and every word of this um, story was just hitting me that I'm crying and nobody has been able to make me cry. Thanks, Mustak. Thank you. Thank you. So was I right in bulleting all the things?
Of
Yeah,
course you were.
and perhaps that's an exercise for everyone to do is for themselves. That list may look a little bit different. And
Yeah.
um but I think that was a very good step for you, Alka, and thank you for sharing what you put down. Okay. So, RM asks, as long as one is awake, the source of words doesn't matter. The personal responsibility is to stay awake.
The source of words always matters. And we have to start with, how did Mullah's words wake those people up? And in order to understand this, Mullah's words woke people up because they created subtle shock points. And those shock points created an opening. And some of the people walk through the opening. Not everyone, but some of them. And all it takes is some.
Yeah. So, I mean, her next question is, does vulnerability have something to do with being affected by that shock? So, yes, I mean, what you're saying, Mushtaq, is that some people received that shock
Yeah.
and were able to then respond to that.
Yeah. And it's not so much vulnerability as it is openness.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
and I
Everybody's
use
vulnerable to shocks, whether they know it or not. I mean, Milton Erickson, who was at the time of his life probably the most adept hypnotist in the world. I watched a video of a trance induction he did. He walked up to a man and he just reached out and took his left arm and held it up and said, What a nice watch my hand me that glass over there, please. Or if it's easier to just close your eyes and sit down and listen to the sound of my voice as I talk to you, you can do that as well, whichever you prefer. In that moment of the word salad where he strung three things together, watch my hand me that glass, is a shock. And in that moment of shock, something new can come in. And that's a really simplistic example of what a shock point is. And it takes a level of mastery that most people don't have to create a shock like that. And it's
So,
interesting because most people don't have it, but anybody can develop it. Go figure. RMS, how does one find shock like Mullah's words? The world is full of them. All you have to do is notice.
Like Fnords.
Bernards are everywhere, man. Okay, we are coming down to the wire here.
yeah. So now we can just kind of check in with everyone, but we have a comment from Austin who says he's quoting Anthony DeMello. Um, I've come to believe that if everybody agrees on something, you can be sure it's wrong. That sounds like Anthony DeMello.
Yeah.
So Austin says, this quote comes to mind when we speak of realizing that we are caught in a trance.
Yep.
Thank you, Austin. So I want to check with people we have not heard from yet. Uh, hmm. Osama one, you want to go ahead? Chris is calling you out.
That's funny. I am in a trance. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
Yeah.
Yep. I went hiking this morning, this whole day, 12 hours. So I'm just listening in. I'm definitely in a trance right now. I'm one of those people that you guys are pointing out. So I'm looking within and seeing all these things inside me that I gotta find and look for.
hmm
Yep.
Owning it. Owning it though.
That's right.
Cool. I'm
Thank you. This
glad.
is
I hope
great.
it was fortifying today. Sounds fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, Mert, how about you?
Yes, I want to ask a question. Um,
Please.
can I observe my trance, like uh, in an awake state?
Yes,
Is
you
that
can.
possible?
You
Yeah.
absolutely can. And it's like the first step.
Okay, because I realize I am always in a trance state.
Yes.
Yes.
So you're not messing up to
Yeah.
realize that. That's actually excellent that
Yeah.
you're attuning to that.
I give you an example of that. When I was young, I smoked cigarettes. I came from a generation where everybody smoked. I learned to roll a cigarette when I was 10 years old because my grandfather started getting arthritis in his fingers and he couldn't roll them himself. And so, like everybody else who smoked cigarettes, I got addicted to nicotine. And I decided that I had to quit. So I began watching the trance that I produced in order to smoke a cigarette because smoking a cigarette uh, is a form of trance. It's one unit of behavior where you get the urge to smoke, you reach out, you take your cigarette, you take your lighter, you light it up, and that is done in trance. And so I learned first to observe that trance, to be present when the urge that set off the trance began to happen. And because of that, I was able to interrupt that trance at the beginning, and I was able to quit smoking. And it wasn't even particularly hard. It wasn't necessarily easy, but it wasn't particularly hard because I always broke the trance at its beginning stage. And so, yes, you can absolutely learn to observe your own trances. That's what self-observation is. Self-observation is, by and large, observing the trances that you go through every day.
Yep. Yeah, and one that I think many of us relate to is the cell phone checking trance, where
Yeah.
we just pick it up, look at it. Is there a way that we could slow down that behavior and see how that comes to fruition? You know, what is the little twinge that starts up that
Yep.
impulse to pick it up?
And the easiest way to do that is when your hand starts reaching for the cell phone, stop it halfway and count to 25.
And if you need to pick it up, you still can, but you're
Yeah.
just
You just
setting up that self-check. If there isn't a need, can you slow the activity down and not just impulsively do it?
If you cannot stop it, does it mean that the trance is too strong?
Yeah, it's not that you cannot stop it, it's that you haven't learned how to stop it yet.
How
There,
do you learn?
there is no trance that you can't stop.
But you get stronger, and
Yes.
yes, so
Yeah.
it means you are weak if you cannot stop it, and you need to train.
Yes. Yeah, it's like lifting weights. When you start lifting weights, you can only lift a little. After a few months, you're lifting a lot more.
It's not a diss, you know, it's not an insult to yourself. It just means, okay, smaller goals.
Yeah.
Set yourself up for success.
And
Is that helpful?
says journaling.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Good. And yes, Austin had to take off. It was great to have him.
And journaling is a tool for self-observation. Yes.
Yes.
Or it can be.
It can be. Yeah, it's not everyone finds it satisfying or beneficial, but if it is a way for you to really dig up the stuff that's going on underneath about the stories you tell yourself and investigating whether they're true or keeping track of, as we were just saying, those patterns of impulse and finding out where is the starting point in that behavior. Journaling can be one way to start unpacking those things. All right, Cherie, what's on your mind today with regard to the talk?
With regard to the talk, yes. I'm thinking about trance and how it's actually easier to look back and recognize when you've been in trance than to try and capture it in the moment. So there's so many things that go on, and I was talking to a new teacher, and she was saying she was teaching a class that was really quiet and it was really hard to get feedback. And I said, well, then you invite questions and ask them how they feel and everything. And she goes, they already know how to, they're already self-aware. The gym is, designed so that they're very self-aware and they know what that means. And I said, people say they are self-aware, but they're actually still really asleep. And I was thinking about that about myself. And I said, when you have to express it in words, then it means you have to quantify it in some way. And so when I find myself falling into the norms of what people think of me or the way I'm supposed to be operating, and I'm thinking, no, I don't actually really want to do that. I really don't want to do that because it's just conforming so that I'm not uncomfortable. And I think what Mert is talking about too is that it does take practice to watch out for that, because I don't like being uncomfortable. But sometimes if you really believe in what this discussion is about, then you have to get uncomfortable. You have to go against saying yes to everything. And you think, oh, is my no really as strong as my yes? So you think, what's going to happen to me if I say no to someone? What's going to happen if I actually stand up for myself? And the friction of that can make you drop back into trance so quickly because it's too difficult. That's what I'm thinking about.
Good stuff. Yes. Yeah. And it's interesting that we're pointing to the saying of no being harder than the saying of yes. I find that is often very true for many of us. I also want to remind ourselves that for some of us, maybe we've gotten into a pattern of saying no. And that's another thing to look at. Maybe we stay home a lot and we've been refusing every outing that our friends have invited us on for the past few years because the pandemic happened and now we don't like going out and it's hard and that means we have to get dressed and showering is such a chore, whatever. Maybe that is a trance too. And a person in that state might want to look at that and begin to see, where's my growing edge where maybe I can say yes to one outing every couple of weeks or once a month or something and start there. But we all have our own patterns that we can observe and see how they may have become a trap for us. For some people, like I said, that'll be saying no. For some people, that'll be saying yes. And different circumstances even may lead us to say kind of a default thing in whatever circumstance. But we can all gain some self-insight when we explore those things. Thank you, Shri. And yeah, so Sama says that touches on the subtlety between being self-conscious and self-aware. That is a really good distinction. And that may be something for us to unpack a little bit in a future conversation too. So I'm going to make note of that. Amelia, how about you?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the talk today, and I'd like to think I may have managed to get out of one trance at one point, and I don't know if maybe an example would be helpful for people, but one trance I was in was that I believed pretty strongly that I would never be able to dance in my entire life. Like I was basically terrified of dancing. But recently I've been able to kind of slowly get myself out of that trance. And it was kind of related to my gender in a certain way. And, I kind of felt like I had to, like I was dancing, looked a little goofy at first, is what I thought. So being kind of like a clown was a good word that you used before. And, it felt strange for a while, but at this point, I love dancing and I'm doing it almost every week, multiple nights. And I honestly don't think I'd be able to stop. But yeah.
That's exciting. That's a cool way to break out of your normal and try on a new normal for a while and see how it feels and get the most out of it that you can. So that's exciting. Awesome. Who have we not heard from yet? Chris, do you want to say anything extra?
I'm pretty content right now.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah. Thank you very
It's,
much.
yeah, no worries. All right. Well, I think I have said my piece. How about you, Mushtaq?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. Any last takers before we wrap up and say goodbye to each other? All right, then. We can go to Brady Bunch mode.
We can. Oh,
We
boy.
can.
And here we are.
Yay. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us during this story time. Thank you so much for your story, Mushtaq, and all
It's
your
not a story. I'm
contributions,
just
everyone.
the person relating it.
All right. Well, we can wave to each other and everyone watching on the replay. We will see you next week at 6:30 p.m. Standard Time. That's
Fun, folks.
Pacific Standard Time. Yes. Take care, everyone.